Welcome, Malgosia, to Berlin.
Thank you very much. And let me just say that I'm very honored and very happy, very proud to be here with you. And thank you for the invitation.
We're so happy you made it from Warsaw, where you live. You've been living for 3 years now.
For more or less 3 years,
right?
Yes.
So we will be talking about your amazing career in the model world, in the fashion world, but also your work with Vogue Polska in a minute. But first, I would like you to take us back to the time where you grew up, because I know you grew up in Krakow.
Yes.
And when we had a phone conversation this week to talk about what we're going to talk about today, you, at one point of our conversation, you said, I'm a product of communism.
Here I am, the product of communism. Yes, I was 12 when the wall went down. So that whole transformation happened when I was a teenager. And I'm happy actually to say that I still remember how it used to be.
What was it like?
Very simple. And you didn't have all the dramas and dilemmas of, I look at teenagers today because I'm a mother of a 15-year-old, and then definitely I have to say I was less lost.
Oh yeah?
Yes.
Why are teenagers more lost today?
Because they seem to have everything, they have access to everything. They don't even want to travel anymore because or they've been there or they've seen it on internet. So that is, it's jaded, blasé, and kind of not curious. And I remember my biggest dream was to get on the plane, which I did at the age of 17. First time, but it was a short flight, and then second time was actually to leave Poland when I was 21 and go to New York and.
So you were studying music and language, I think, linguistics in Krakow?
I was going to music school. I was studying music, and parallelly, I was at the university. I was studying English literature and linguistics, and then this great opportunity came up, and at first somebody stopped me in the street and asked me if I would like to become a model. I said, "You're out of your mind." But second question was, "But would you like to travel? You could go to Milan, Paris, London, New York." And I said, "New York," and that's how it all started.
How did you actually got discovered?
I went to the theater. I went to the theater.
In Krakow?
No, that was in Warsaw.
Uh-huh.
That was a big trip already for me, from Krakow to Warsaw to go to the theater. And that's when my mother agent spotted me and asked me that question, and I thought it was crazy. But then he kind of kept stalking me and in a good way and offered a free ticket to New York, and I went with, I guess my parents borrowed from somebody $300. So I had $300 in my pocket, no cell phone, an email address, and an address of a model's apartment, uptown New York, 53rd Street and First Avenue, and that's what it was. I landed. Called at the airport. I called the agency. They said, "Come tomorrow. In the meantime, go to this address." I took a cab that was 1/5 of my budget at the time, so that didn't start. It wasn't very optimistic.
Were you afraid, arriving, or?
Now because I actually wrote a short story about it for Polish Vogue, and as I was writing, I was thinking, what was I thinking? But I guess when you're in it, you're not. You just think you're gonna somehow get away with it and nothing bad is gonna happen. But now I look at it differently, and I do understand my parents because I'm a mother, obviously. So would never let it.
Why did you want to go to New York? I mean, what was the?
Well, there's a romantic story behind it. As a student, I fell in love with an exchange student from Canada, and on the map it looked like Canada is close to the United States. So I thought I'd go to New York, and then maybe somehow I'll get to Montreal or Toronto, wherever he was, and that long distance relationship will be a little shorter distance relationship.
And did it work out at the time?
We did meet, but it's obviously. Now, being a model, it's very hard to maintain a relationship. Or
Oh yeah.
I think so. I think that's the biggest sacrifice you actually make. I can say it now with an honesty of, I've been in this business for 22 years, 21, and it's really to keep a family, to be a full-time partner is very difficult, and maybe easier now with the communication we have, right? But back in the days, it was challenging.
Now, I wrote this little story, and I don't know if it's true, but when you did your first shows in New York,
Yes.
was it New York or Paris, you were, I think, hired by Comme des Garçons?
I was.
And is it true that you first thought the clothes weren't finished?
Yes, exactly. Yes, I thought, wow, this is really all very nice. First of all, I went to the casting. It was like 200 girls outside Place Vendôme. I was fished out then to this second stage of the casting, and then we ended up doing just 4 of us for this particular season. And then we got to see the clothes, and I was like, wow, the show is tomorrow, they're not finished yet. So that was my first encounter with deconstruction in fashion, but I've learned a lot since then.
How was it like? So we're talking about which year? We're talking about 1990?
This is exactly 21 years ago, so it's September 1999. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 1998 still.
Right.
98.
So how was it like becoming part of this model world? I mean, I think you were a George Michael fan before, so you watched the video.
I was not a George Michael fan,
the video.
but I was of the video. Yes, the Freedom video was my only contact with fashion. Let's say I'd never seen so many beautiful women at once. And when I heard fashion, that was fashion for me. So that's all I knew about fashion, beautiful women, and suddenly you enter this very world, and obviously it looks quite different from behind, from within.
In which way?
Well, it's definitely doesn't look like Freedom video, sorry, but it's less glamorous, and it comes down also to discipline, hard work, being at the right place at the right time, being professional, taking care of yourself, and spending a lot of time by yourself. That's what I remember from that time. And not to mention the traveling and everything. Back in the days, I would go from New York twice a week to Europe. So I guess that was challenging. But I had that communist upbringing and a lot of discipline. 2 schools, playing the piano was helpful.
Yes, so you're playing the piano.
I do still play the piano, yes.
And could you keep playing the piano when you
Could I play something now? Right?
No, we don't have a piano here, right? I mean, which song would you play right now if you would have a piano?
Well, I was trained classically, so
yeah.
I would probably play. Well, if I was here and there was a piano here, I'd probably play some Chopin, and
because he's Polish.
Because he's Polish, not French. So, so that would be it. But yeah, so back.
So I think you've been on, I don't know, more than 50, 60, 70 covers in your career. I mean, people stopped counting. Yeah, I can imagine. But I think your parents didn't recognize you when you were on your first Vogue cover, right?
So I left in July, actually on the 6th of July. I was 21, so we can do the math.
I'm so bad at math.
I'm going to be 42 in 2 days. So I was 21, so it must have been 21 years ago.
I'm sure.
Almost exactly. And then I came back for first Christmas home from New York, and they had no idea what the hell I was doing in New York. So, and I came with my first, I remember it was Vogue Spain cover, Spanish Vogue, and some money that I didn't have a bank account at the time, so I brought the money I had. Cash. In
dollars.
Envelope, dollars, yeah. Put it under the Christmas tree.
No. How much?
10,000.
Wow.
That's what you could take without declaring, right?
Okay.
I guess that was what I had made anyway by that time. Obviously more than I had ever seen in my life. So and my parents.
How did they react?
Probably they thought I robbed a bank or something. Or first thought, second thought, I prostituted myself.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. And then I gave them the Spanish Vogue issue, and they were like, very nice, but like, why? I said, well, look at the cover. I said, no, what? And then the Spanish Vogue, they didn't give credits at the time to
For the models?
For the models. So I guess my parents still don't believe it was me. Because it was shot from a low angle, and this is really, I had to learn also myself how to look at yourself in pictures, right? It's different than when you look in the mirror, you kind of look face to face. I never knew what my profile looked like, for instance, obviously. So yeah, that was funny. That was a funny Christmas.
When was the time your parents actually believed that you weren't robbing banks or doing other crazy stuff?
Well, I guess that first year I took a year off, a sabbatical at the university where my mom was teaching as well. And by the time I had to take another year off, which was not a sabbatical, I just had to stop for a second. She was the administrative director, and she had to actually cross my name out of the list of students. I guess that's where it hit her. This is for real. And then my father very quickly got into it and became my biggest fan. Until the day he died, he was really collecting everything. And my mom, I guess I validated myself as a human being when I had my son, so around 15 years ago.
Joseph.
Yes.
So we talked about the fact that Instagram went down yesterday.
Did it?
Yes. I'm telling it to you because I know you're one of the very few models, supermodels who are not on Instagram.
Well, that's why I don't know it went down.
Yeah.
But what happened actually?
We still don't know yet. I think it must have been like a hack attack or something. So you don't know, but your son might have been.
Probably, but you see, another thing that those young people are doing, they have private accounts, which is so like, okay.
The second one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the official one for the parents?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
The official one for the parents, and then
so the parents always think they live a decent life.
And then private ones where they smoke joints and
Yeah.
cigarettes and drink, and they document it all.
Dark Instagram.
Yeah. Dark Instagram.
That's what they call it, I think. So I heard. But your son is living with you in Warsaw now?
Yes, he's living with me in Warsaw, and he's 15. So if you ask me about my full-time job, this is it. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And yeah, it's actually quite, it is scary. I see the way the world is going. It's not easy to find a direction so they live like there is no tomorrow.
Are you a strict mother?
Am I what?
A strict mother?
Yes.
So
it doesn't work fully. So.
What kind of rules do you have? Do you have?
Right now,
Joseph
honestly,
won't be listening.
okay. So here's the last thing. This is a new word that entered our vocabulary: is negotiation. Sitting down, negotiating. You can't have your cake and eat it. Look at Theresa May. The Brexit negotiations comes up a lot in the conversation.
So what kind of negotiations is Joseph interested in negotiating with you?
He's not. He's a terrorist. Like this is. So no, seriously. So this is the latest development is like, I do not negotiate with terrorists. Like no one does. You just so little by little, but we are moving forward.
So I briefly mentioned at the beginning of our conversation that you lived abroad for more than 20 years.
More than 20 years, yes.
And you moved back to Poland 3 years ago.
Yes.
Also, I think because Vogue Poland was about to be launched, and
I didn't know that. I moved back to Poland, and a few months later, I was approached by a friend of mine who happens to be editor-in-chief now, with this project that sounded absolutely. So now I'm finished with modeling. I'm going to have something else to do. So I was happy, and it was great to actually create it from scratch, from from the first to the last page, from the first cover to the last page.
I have done that once in my life, and I know it's great, but it's also very tough.
It's tough, but it's. I mean, everything is tough, but it's even more tough if it's boring. So, I mean, come on. So it's better, it's exciting, and you really don't know what's ahead of you. I had never had an experience creating a magazine, and it is quite, you know, when you put it's quite thrilling, I have to say. And then we went to the printers, and the moment when you see it all comes out from the machine, it's
amazing, no?
It's
the paper.
Pretty, yes, it's pretty moving. It's definitely one of the highlights of my. Yeah, definitely. I will remember that. I'm very proud of it.
People who are interested in the fashion world know that you launched Vogue Polska 3 years ago because the first cover caused a stir, like a big debate in Poland.
Well, we started working on it 3 years ago when we moved
so the
back.
first came out.
The first, we are like a year and a half ago.
Yeah, okay. So when it came out, like, can you, like, I think most of us have seen it, but can you just explain why the discussion in Poland was so big about this cover?
So that was at the time when we had some issues with our right-wing government trying to violate women's rights and
especially abortion rights.
Abortion rights, yes. So that was a time of so-called black protests in Poland when women would go out in the streets, and then they abandoned that project. They got scared of women. Who wouldn't? And
your son doesn't, apparently.
Yeah, well, not yet. Yeah, so it seemed to, and that was at the time, and they also had an idea of distracting everything that remotely reminds them of communist times. So that's why exactly we put two models, myself and Ania Rubik, in front of this communist building, the symbol of Warsaw.
The big tower.
Yes, the gift from Stalin, yes.
The gift.
This is a gift from Stalin.
Yeah.
Original.
I mean, not everyone in Poland thinks it's a gift, right? Some
but
do.
It's a symbol of Warsaw. It's just, I cannot imagine Warsaw without it. So we put those two women wearing black in front of that building with a black car that was used by Secret Service in the 50s. Voga, that's a pun. Vogue, Voga, right?
Got it.
A Russian car. And it was raining, and the picture was taken by a German photographer, so to Jürgen Teller. So it was really I think it's a great picture, just as a picture without any context, but you can read a lot into the picture, and it caused quite a stir.
Were you aware that how much of a stir it would cause, and how big the debate would become in Poland?
I guess we didn't expect that. We were prepared for being criticized for not being glamorous, because people, I guess, a lot of women expected something very Parisian, yes, and more fashion, and I remember it was just, that was when it came out, and it sold in over 150,000 copies. It was really, we had to do a reprint of that. So
it's also an interesting example for how to use a cover of a fashion magazine to make a political statement.
Right. Well, a subtle political statement. It wasn't. We are not, as Vogue, we are not supposed to be political, but it is a woman's magazine, and it wasn't in your face. You could read into it, but you could not. Also, there were two women dressing in Celine. Last collection of Phoebe in Celine's outfits.
But dressed in black, so yes. Everyone in Poland.
Oh, it's just a choice, chic.
What's it like living in Poland now with the political situation? How do you deal with it? Well, I mean, we all have. I mean, in every country, we all have our debates about right-wing populist parties being so successful. In Poland, they're very successful at the moment.
They're very successful, and By the way, with the latest European elections, we did the kind of meme of this very cover with Anya wearing, just encouraging people to vote with just with T-shirts, 26th of May. But anyway, it went, it didn't go well. But how is it? I mean, I personally prefer I prefer to be in the opposition. It's more thrilling, and you have something to fight for. You have a lot of topics at dinner to complain about, and to maybe try to change something. And it's always better to have a cause. That's why also I was happy to bring my teenage son back to Poland. That it was just after the right wing came to power. And we were still demonstrating for the courts, for women, so there was a lot of going out in the streets, and I think that kind of involvement is great for young people, rather than smoking joints.
Yeah, Joseph doesn't smoke joints.
Not that I know, but
only on the dark side of Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. I'd have to break into that and find out.
Now, besides your main job as a mother of Joseph and as creative director of Vogue Polska and your model career, of course, that you still very successful pursue, you've also made a side career in the movies.
Side one. It's more. I wouldn't call it a job. It's more like a hobby. If somebody lets me.
Like Luca Guadagnino.
And Luca Guadagnino lets me, so I'm very grateful to him. And it's always it's something I love doing, but I'm not pursuing it because it would be too frustrating, I guess. Yeah.
So you were in this. I haven't seen the latest one. It's the horror movie Suspiria.
Suspiria.
Wasn't it partly shot in Berlin, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The American part was shot in Berlin.
Right.
The American countryside.
So why didn't you pursue it more intensely?
Well, first of all, I'm a wife of a fantastic film director already, so that would look bad, just for starters.
Paweł
Pawlikowski.
He's Oscar nominated.
Oscar winning also.
Oscar winning, yeah, for Cold War.
For Ida, and
Cold
three
War.
three times Oscar nominated this year. So enough of that cinema at home. That's another job, actually, being a wife of somebody so grand and fantastic.
So would you like to work with your husband at one time, or is that something?
I do work, but I just have to deal with him. So that's work. No, but seriously, as an actor, I never thought about it. Although one journalist in Poland once asked me a very funny question. It was like this breakfast TV. She said, "Well, now, when you've become a wife of such a great director, you're not going to abandon your acting career." So that's probably the popular thinking, that because I am married to a director, I shouldn't stop.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good reason not to do it.
Now, you've mentioned you've been in the industry now for 21 years now. Could you sum up how the industry has changed?
Massively. Again, I'm a product of communism, so I remember the two worlds, and for fashion, I remember the world pre-digital. I remember working with Richard Avedon, and so it's so lucky, right? But it didn't happen overnight. It didn't go down like Berlin Wall. But it was a revolution. It made everything faster, bigger, faster, and more, and even faster. It's and more instant. And
do you like it?
There are parts of it. It's like, do you like internet? Yeah, I like it when I need to find out something, and I hate it then for other things. So it's not the thing itself is not right or wrong. It's how you do it and what you do with it, right? I do not like the whole. I'm kind of happy it went down for a day. For a day or for an hour?
It was half a day, I think. It was, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, it's good actually. But I'm glad it went back on. But it's just because only then can you imagine, wow, what it was like before without it, right? It's like when you lose your phone or you leave it in Uber. It's suddenly.
It's also a moment of freedom, right?
It's a moment of
scaring,
freaking out,
right.
and a moment of freedom as well, once you accept it.
What would you do if you would lose your phone and you could do whatever you could do after this conference?
I don't even know. It's honestly, but that's what this question makes me realize how much I depend on it, and I think I'm not so I kind of don't care so much. But I don't know how we did it with I don't know how we dealt with faxes before. I got my call sheet in a fax machine before.
We have to explain what a fax is to some of the people in the audience, I guess.
Sounds dirty. But it's not.
No,
yeah, that doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Right?
You would write love letters on fax paper,
but
right?
yeah, you could write a letter and put it in a machine somewhere, and it would come out in some other place.
I know a friend of mine, a female friend of mine, had a long-term relationship with a guy in New York, and they've been sending each other faxes for years. And she collected them. And after a couple of years, she went back to this archive of hers.
And found them?
Yeah, but all empty.
Faded.
Faded,
yeah. But yeah, I had this faxing sort of relationship with Richard Avedon.
Oh yeah?
He would send me faxes, and I would write back proper letters. But he sent me. I have to check if they are not faded now. Now you got me worried.
I'm sorry, I didn't want to worry you. But what was it like working with Richard Avedon? What did you learn from him?
Epic. Well, everything. Honestly, everything about photography I learned from him, and everything about psychology of photography or the relationship between a photographer and a subject, I learned from him. So much. I'm so grateful. And then I went back to the university, and my MA thesis is on him.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, that was the year he died, 2004.
So when you mention the psychology of photographers or photography itself, I mean, can you give us an example in which?
First of all, I understood, I was very young, right? And I understood, he explained it to me, the position of power when you are behind the camera, and it's your decision what kind of light you are using, what kind of angle you are using, and then he explains this also in many prefaces in his albums, because he shot many political figures, and it's all depends. You think it's white background or gray background, but it's so much depends on an angle and the conversation you are having with the person. There's this famous picture of the royal couple with the Duke and Duchess and their dog, and so it really completely changed my way of thinking, and I think about it a lot now when I'm on the other side, being a creative director. I go back to that a lot.
I would love to talk with you for another half an hour, but our time is running up. I know that you've been into sports for such a long time. You're a great swimmer. Do you still swim every day?
I'm a great swimmer. I swim every day, and I'm a big football fan as well.
Yeah, that's what was. Yeah. So
this is a T-shirt of a sports club in called Polonia, the first one that was created when Poland was still under the partitions. So 1911.
Oh wow! In Krakow?
No, this is the Warsaw one. The first one was created in Krakow, but this is the first Warsaw one. Right now they are in the third league, and I'm a great supporter.
But these are the best supporters who support their clubs even when they're in the third league, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm a fan of Liverpool anyway, so.
But they won the Champions League. You've been with them for a longer time.
Yeah, longer than when they didn't win the Champions League last year also.
That's something to learn about life from you as well.
Yeah.
Malgosia, I mean, it's been such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Please
you very,
come back.
very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.